Hey guys, welcome to another video. I'll be doing a video on Metal Gear Solid 2, the story. Since Metal Gear Solid 3 is coming out later this year in 2025, the remake of Snake Eater, I thought I'd do a quick video on the story of Metal Gear Solid 2. Right, so Metal Gear Solid 2, 2 years after Shadow Moses, Otacon and Solid Snake have formed a group called Philanthropy. Now, this is an NGO, a non governmental organization tasked to locate and destroy Metal Gears. So they get intelligence from an unknown source that there will be a new Metal Gear being built, and the Metal Gear is being held in a marine tanker. Right? So Solid Snake's job is to infiltrate the tanker, take some pictures of the Metal Gear, and expose that there are new Metal Gears being built. By the time Solid Snake gets on the tanker, Snake sees Russian soldiers taking out the Marines that are on the outer deck. Right? So we're like, what's going on here? We find out there's Russian soldiers that are being led by the Sergei Golukovich and none other than Revolver Ocelot. Nevertheless, Snake still decides to take the pictures of the Metal Gear. While he's on his way to take the pictures, he comes across Olga Golukovich, which is the daughter of Sergei. Right? It's revealed that she's pregnant. Sergei wants her off the tanker. However, she wants to carry on the mission until the end. So she and Solid Snake battle, and Solid Snake ends up tranquilizing her. He then makes his way down to the basement of the tanker where the rest of the Marines are standing in rows and watching Commander Jackson give a speech about the Metal Gear. So now it's been revealed that the Metal Gear is called Metal Gear Ray, right? The Marines at this time do not know that the rest of the tanker has been taken over. Snake goes and takes pictures of the Metal Gear Ray and uploads the files to Otacon. And then who appears? None other than Revolver Ocelot, alongside Sergei Golukovich. Now, Sergei involves Commander Jackson that it was his and Revolver Ocelot's plan to steal Metal Gear Ray. Well, Ocelot had other plans. So he pulls out his revolver and shoots Sergei in the heart. Revolver Ocelot wants to steal Metal Gear Ray for himself. As we know in Shadow Moses, Revolver Ocelot's arm gets chopped off by a cyborg ninja called Grey Fox. After the events of Shadow Moses, Ocelot manages to put Liquid's arm onto his own body. Little does Revolver Ocelot know, Solid Snake is also still in the room with him with the rest of the Marines watching the entire thing happen. So all of a sudden, Revolver Ocelot's arm starts acting up. This is because whenever Liquid's arm, now on Revolver Ocelot, is close to Solid Snake, Liquid Snake takes over Revolver Ocelot's body. So now, Revolver Ocelot, or more so Liquid Snake, blows up the tanker and takes Metal Gear Ray. The whole cutscene shows all the Marines dying, Sergei is dead, Commander Jackson is dead. Now we also presume that Solid Snake is dead, as he's kind of like sinking into the water whilst the whole tanker collapses. And you see Otacon basically shouting the infamous Snake, Snake, Snake. So now, if we backtrack, after Solid Snake defeats Olga, we see a Cypher take a picture, right? He takes a picture of Solid Snake. We find out later, with those pictures, Solid Snake was blamed for being a terrorist, taking over the ship and blowing it up. Even though it wasn't him, that's what the pictures had shown, right? So now, fast forward 2 years later, we now see Colonel Campbell talking to a Snake about infiltrating the Big Shell. After the tanker incident, it leaked crude oil everywhere, so they built up this Big Shell as a decontamination facility. Right? The facility gets taken over during its inspection tour by a group called Sons of Liberty. And who else happens to be there during the tour is the president, President James Johnson. And of course, the president and a few others have been taken hostage for a ransom of $30 billion and to deliver the remains of Big Boss. And if they had failed to comply, they would blow the whole shell up, killing all the hostages, president alongside, ultimately leading to the worst environmental disaster ever since. It's a facility to clean up the crude oil. Right, so then there'll be a lot of toxic chemicals in the water. So Snake's mission was to rescue the president and save the hostages and prevent the Sons of Liberty blowing up the Big Shell. So the orders were given by the Pentagon. So Colonel Campbell explains to Snake that the leader of the terrorist group Sons of Liberty is none other than Solid Snake. Right? This other Snake that Colonel Campbell is talking to is like, I thought Solid Snake died on the tanker 2 years ago. And then the Campbell says, I don't know. It seemingly seems so like he died 2 years ago, but he's calling himself Solid Snake, the leader of the Sons of Liberty. So to avoid confusion with the name Snake, Colonel Campbell changes this Snake's code name, because that's what it is essentially, to what we know as Raiden. The terrorist group Sons of Liberty, they're also known as Special X-Forces unit called Dead Cell. They have been doing it a whole lot of terrorist activity in the past, and Solid Snake is the leader of the group. So Raiden infiltrates Big Shell from underwater, and once he gets out, he sees somebody running ahead of him, right? He takes out all the guards, an unknown person, and he's going up the elevator. So Raiden just misses him, so he alerts Colonel Campbell. He's like, hey man, there's somebody else here besides me. Colonel Campbell's like, well, no, that's impossible. Nobody else is supposed to be there except the SEAL Team 10 and himself. And SEAL Team 10 is coming by helicopter. There are two teams, Alpha and Beta team. The Alpha team will assist in rescuing the president. However, they do not know that Raiden is on board. Raiden is a solo mission in itself. All right, so the Alpha team assists the president, assist in rescuing the president, and the Beta team assist in locating any disarming the bombs, really. Right? So Raiden then finds out that his girlfriend has been called into the mission as a system analyst. Of course, Raiden is hella annoyed as he believes she shouldn't be involved in this at all. Now Big Shell is compromised with two main shells, right? 1 and 2, and each shell has 6 struts, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then the second shell would be G, H, I, J, K, L. So Raiden makes his way into strut B in shell 1, as he's been informed that SEAL Team 10, the Alpha team, has actually located the president there. So once Raiden gets there, he sees all the SEAL Team 10 team slaughtered all over the place, blood everywhere, and you're like, who the hell could have done this? Now, when you're playing the game, you start to think, was this unknown person that we saw before, right? So he enters the room and sees this guy biting into one of the Alpha team's neck, sucking all his blood. This is Vamp, one of the members of Dead Cell or Sons of Liberty. There seems to be one survivor of the Alpha SEAL Team 10 who manages to scare Vamp away. He then introduces himself as Iroquois Pliskin. Now, he was bleeding out a fair bit, so he's decided to take a little rest. Raiden hears gunfire coming from the B to C connecting bridge, so he makes his way there and comes across another member of Dead Cell, Fortune. We can see that the president is by her feet and she's being shot at by the Bravo team. However, the bullets are going around her. It's not going through her, but it's going around her, so she cannot be shot. So the Bravo team decide to start to get closer to attempt to save the president, but she blows up the bridge. So they can't get too close to her, really. And then she proceeds to kill the remaining members of the Bravo team with her railgun. Now Vamp comes and takes the president away on his back. Raiden then gets intelligence from Colonel Campbell that there are C4 bombs all under all the struts in Shell 1 and 2, placed by a third member of Dead Cell called Fat Man. So Raiden and Iroquois Pliskin together meet up with a bomb expert who came with the SEAL Team 10 Bravo team, and his name is Peter Stillman. Now, Peter Stillman was like a mentor to Fat Man before he had joined Dead Cell. So Peter Stillman tells us to use the coolant to freeze all the bombs in the big shell. Once Iroquois Pliskin leaves, once they had that conversation, Peter Stillman goes and tells Raiden that he believes Iroquois Pliskin is lying about his identity. He doesn't believe he's with the SEAL Team 10. So now Iroquois Pliskin and Raiden split up. Iroquois Pliskin takes care of the bombs in Shell 2, and Raiden takes care of the bombs in Shell 1. Peter Stillman realizes the locations of the bombs were weird and finds out that all the bombs were just baby bombs as a distraction, while there are two bigger bombs, one on each shell, one on shell 1 and one on shell 2. As Iroquois is occupied with freezing the baby bombs in shell 2, Peter Stillman goes to shell 2 to disarm the bigger bomb. Now, what he doesn't realize is that as a mentor, he believes he had taught Fat Man everything, right? But Fat Man had another precautionary measure that Peter Stillman did not know, and it was pretty much a proximity sensor on the bomb. So what happens? Boom. The bomb that Peter Stillman was meant to defuse blows up in shell 2, explodes and kills Peter Stillman. Right. So Ryden gets to his bomb in time, but receives a call to meet the Fat Man at the heliport in, I've forgotten what strut it is now, but yeah. So on the way to the heliport, we run into Fortune again. She wasn't expecting Ryden, but was expecting someone else. We wanted to find out, not we, but she wanted to find out if Ryden could kill her, because she wants to die, because nothing can kill her, and everyone she loves and likes seems to be dying around her, but she doesn't die. So Ryden survives the confrontation until Vamp comes down the elevator to inform Fortune that they need to get the president. So Ryden tries to shoot her during the discussion and swooshes off Fortune, because obviously the bullets can't get her, so it kind of swerves off Fortune, like every bullet does, and hits Vamp in the stomach and head. Now, Lady Fortune is crying over Vamp, believing that Vamp is dead. However, Vamp is still very well alive. Alright, so now Ryder makes his way back up the elevator and is on his way to the heliport, where he is now confronted by the third member of Dead Cell, Fat Man. He says he doesn't care about Dead Cell and had no knowledge about the $30 billion ransom. This is Fat Man. And says all he wants to do is be better than his mentor Peter Stillman and to be known as the most famous bomber. So after Raiden defeats Fat Man, Raiden is faced with a cyborg ninja, one that was very similar to the one in Shadow Moses, but that does mean that Grey Fox is still alive, right? So the ninja tells Raiden in order to find the president, Raiden will have to find a guy called Richard Ames, who is being held with all the other hostages in Shell 2. The ninja also tells Raiden that the big shell is not a cleaning facility at all, but in fact, it's a whole it's housing a new prototype of Metal Gear, and that the big shell was a camouflage built for Metal Gear. It was all a cover-up. Right. In order to access Shell 2, Raiden had to find an outfit similar to what the soldiers wore on that shell, because in different shells they wore different outfits. So Raiden does that by going to strut F, I believe it is, picks up his AK from there, sorry. Yeah, I think he was given the clothing by Cyborg Ninja. So anyway, so Raiden goes and finds Richard Ames using a directional microphone. Since Richard Ames has like a pacemaker in his heart, his heartbeat sounds a little bit different to everyone else, so it's quite easy to locate him, right? So as they're chatting, Raiden and Richard Ames are chatting, we see Revolver Ocelot and Solid Snake talking in the room next to the hostages. So Raiden uses the directional microphone, pulls it up to listen, right? So they talk about establishing something called Outer Heaven, which was Big Boss's dream, right? So, but we're not told what is Outer Heaven here. Raiden continues talking to Ames, and Revolver Ocelot comes out of the room and sees them talking. Richard Ames randomly dies from a heart attack, and then Revolver asks Raiden to reveal himself because he's dressed up as the enemy, right? So he looks just like every other soldier, but it was weird for Ocelot, so he asked him to reveal himself. So once he does, of course it's Raiden, right? So Revolver Ocelot pulls out a revolver and points it at Raiden's head. Then out of nowhere, from the ceiling, or from the top of the building anyway, Cyborg Ninja comes out to the rescue and tries to attempt to cut off Revolver Ocelot's arm or hand, pretty much just like in Shadow Moses, right? But Revolver Ocelot evades it, right? So now he's shocked. Revolver's like, what the hell? I believe you died in Shadow Moses. So Cyborg draws their attention so that Raiden can escape and find the president, which is obviously was revealed by Richard Ames. So Raiden is on his way to find the president, but then gets confronted by Solid Snake on the bridge. Iroquois Pliskin, that's on a helicopter, yells, "That's not Solid Snake." That is when it's kind of revealed that Iroquois Pliskin is indeed Solid Snake and the imposter is Solidus Snake. I mean, we always knew that Iroquois Pliskin looked a lot like Solid Snake in the first place. Pardon me. Right, so if you remember at the end of Metal Gear Solid 1, it was revealed that Solidus Snake was the president at the time and that he was in fact another clone of Big Boss alongside Liquid Snake and Solid Snake. However, he was removed from office when the whole thing kind of just blew up in his face. The whole Shadow Moses blew up in his face. So Solidus Snake then jumps on the Harrier with Vamp, and then Raiden has to battle this Harrier on the bridge. So we get a little help from Solid Snake and the infamous Otacon, who's piloting the helicopter, right? And the Harrier falls because Raiden's now shot it down. However, it gets caught by Metal Gear Ray that's just come out of the ocean. And then it dives back into the ocean along with Solidus. So Otacon, he has his own ulterior motive as to why he wants to be here in the Big Shell. His little sister, Emma Emmerich, is working at the Big Shell as a system programmer, and she believes she's being held captive somewhere, right? So he wants to save her. Okay, so from there, Raiden is on his way again to the president, constantly being interrupted. But he witnesses Olga Golukovich on the phone. She's on the radio to Solidus Snake, and she's basically saying that Solid Snake is hers and she wants to take revenge for Solid Snake killing her father, Sergei Golukovich, right? Not knowing that it was in fact Revolver Ocelot that killed him. Raiden finally finds the president and he tells us about this organization called the Patriots. So now Patriots control pretty much everything. Nobody knows who they are. They're a Wiseman committee consisting of 12 members, right? So Solidus Snake wants to figure out who they are and destroy them, essentially. So Raiden learns that the Big Shell was a huge cover-up for Arsenal gear, and that there was not just one Metal Gear, but a whole lot of them, and they're all underneath the Big Shell. The Big Shell is not just an area to hold all these Metal Gears, but to protect an AI system called GW. GW was programmed to censor all forms of digital information, things like communication, internet traffic, media broadcast, etc., etc. So basically, it controls everything in an attempt to manipulate the masses so that they can shape history in the way that they see fit, right? So the president also tells Raiden that Emma Emmerich, Otacon sister, is actually the GW system programmer, and Raiden needs to find her to give her this computer worm, like a virus, right? That can affect GW. The president then hands over the disk containing the worm, and the computer worm will shut down GW for the hope of mankind. So we also learned that, in fact, that the president was working alongside Sons of Liberty and had already gave them the code to open the nuclear football, right? He wanted power. Being the president didn't give him power because the Patriots controlled everything. They controlled who would be the president, right? Effectively. So he decided to join forces with Sons of Liberty to leverage his way into becoming one of the Patriots. It's the only way he could get power, which is why the president was actually here on the inspection tour of the Big Shell in the first place. However, he learned that Solid Snake's mission was to, in fact, destroy the Patriots. So his motive changed. He regretted his decision and didn't want to take part in the death of innocent lives, right? Because Solid Snake wanted to essentially nuke the skies of New York to eliminate any control that the Patriots would have in business. Now, to actually open the nuclear football, not only would they need the president's code, 1 hour after giving the code, they would need the vital signs of the president, which is why, as soon as the president had given the worm to Raiden, he asks Raiden to shoot him and kill him, because if he's kept alive, then they'll be able to access the nuclear weapon, right? So what happens is, actually, Ocelot walks in, and shoots the president in the chest and walks off. Doesn't do anything to Raiden. Now Raiden, on his way to find Emma, right, and she's in this area that's flooded because the bomb that killed Peter Stillman, she's in that area, so everything's just flooding up, right? But on her way there, she encounters Vamp again, but in this little chamber, right? And in the middle, there's water, and Raiden can't go anywhere into that water, otherwise he would die. But for some reason, Vamp can. Anywho, after defeating Vamp, Vamp falls into the water, and Emma finds Emma in a lock of some sort, right, hiding. But in order for her to leave the area, Emma has to swim. The only thing is, Emma's reluctant to do so because she's had a traumatic event in the past involving her dad dying. So she decides to hold on to Raiden while he swims through that flooded area. So Raiden needs to take her to a computer room, right, where she can upload the worm. But in order to do so, on the way there, they have to pass this oil fence, which can only take one person's body weight at a time. So Raiden decides to step back with a sniper while Emma crosses. So midway, Snake decides to join and protect Emma from anything in the path while she's crossing, so Solid Snake can shoot, anything that's in your vision of your scope, such as ciphers or hidden claymores, Then all of a sudden, Vamp comes up out of the water and grabs Emma and holds her hostage, effectively, right? So Raiden shoots Vamp again with his sniper. However, not before Vamp stabbing Emma. So now Emma drops because she's bleeding, right? So Solid Snake grabs her, and both Solid Snake and Raiden take her to the computer room where Otacon is waiting to enter that worm. So when we get there, Emma's bleeding out everywhere. Raiden and Solid Snake enter the worm, but there's a fault and it doesn't fully work, right? It's a small error within the coding, perhaps. So Emma and Otacon share a moment before she dies in Otacon's arms. Really sad. The whole situation is really sad, right? So now, because of the worm, the virus didn't fully work. Solid Snake tells Raiden, okay, now the only way is to basically kill the Sons of Liberty, everyone. So out of nowhere, the cyborg ninja shows up, and it's revealed that the cyborg ninja was in fact Olga Galukovich the entire time. She says that they need Raiden to get into Arsenal gear, and Raiden doesn't make any real sense of it, right? So Olga Galukovich then electrocutes Raiden and knocks him out. But whilst he's passing out, feeling betrayed by Olga Galukovich and Solid Snake basically says he doesn't remember saying that he was ever on Raiden's side. So when Raiden wakes up, he wakes up in a torture chamber naked, quite similar to what happened to Solid Snake in Shadow Moses. And in front of him are now Revolver Ocelot and Solid Snake. Now, Solid Snake reveals that he actually trained Raiden when he was young, and he's basically pretty much like a father figure to him, right? So when Raiden's family was killed, Solidus took Raiden into this small boy unit, which was basically comprised of a whole bunch of child soldiers that was being led by Solid Snake. At that time, I think he was a teenager of some sort. This is Solid Snake. He was a teenager whilst he was the leader. So Raiden doesn't remember any of this, as he's kind of buried it down deep inside of him. No. And the nickname that he was given when he was a kid and was killing all these people, the nickname was Jack the Ripper, and that was given to him by Solidus, Jack being his real name. Right. So Revolver Ocelot and Solidus Snake, they leave. Olga Galukovich enters, and we find out that she's not actually against Raiden, but needed him as a distraction while she and Solid Snake could sneak into Arsenal gear. So you're probably thinking, why is Olga helping Raiden? I thought she was one of the bad guys, right? No, but Olga was actually sent there by the Patriots. Now, the Patriots want to stop Solid Snake in his tracks because Solid Snake is trying to destroy the Patriots, right? So on the tanker 2 years ago, we learned that Olga was pregnant. Well, the Patriots had basically taken a child as soon as she gave birth. And she was told if she did not help Raiden with his mission, they would kill her child. So they sink the child's vitals with Raiden's nanomachines. So basically, simply put, if Raiden dies, the child would die too. So Olga then informs Raiden to rendezvous with Solid Snake, who would basically have all of his gear, and then basically frees Raiden as soon as she leaves the room so that her cover is intact. So Raiden is now running around Arsenal Gear all naked. He meets up with Solid Snake, and Solid Snake obviously apologizes because they just wanted to just sneak into Arsenal Gear. There's no way around it, really. And then gives Raiden his gear, but also gives him a blade that the Cyborg Ninja used, right? And then I think during that process, Colonel Campbell and Rose are getting all weird on the codec, right? To Raiden, and it just makes no sense. They're talking about the weirdest things. So he tells Otacon about it. Raiden tells Otacon about it, and Otacon basically digs into it and reveals that Colonel Campbell did not actually exist. Colonel Campbell was actually inside of GW, which basically means Colonel Campbell was an AI the entire time Raiden had entered the big shell. He was never even there. It's not real. He was an AI. So Emma's virus is still working through the system, even though the virus isn't completely working. It is still messing up the GW system. This is why the Colonel and Rose's calls are just really weird on the codec, right? So now we're at a point where Solid Snake and Raiden is confronted by Fortune again for like the third time. And Fortune wants to take out her revenge on Solid Snake because she believes Solid Snake killed her father, Commander Jackson, the Marine that was talking to all the Marines on the tanker, right? So she believes Solid Snake killed it by blowing up the tanker. Obviously, Solid Snake tries to reassure her that it wasn't him that killed her father, but she doesn't have it and she doesn't believe him, right? So Solid Snake asks Raiden to leave because she believes he can take on Fortune by himself. So Raiden climbs the ladder and leaves, right? So after climbing the ladder, he ends up in this sort of arena, surrounded by a whole bunch of Metal Gear Rays. Solid Snake reveals that his plan to Raiden was called the S3 plan, the Solid Snake simulation. It's basically attempting to turn Raiden into the perfect soldier through VR training and memes. Memes are kind of like genes in the sense that they're societal lessons that are passed down from generation to generation through like learning, education, and society in a sense, right? So Solid challenges Raiden to fight a whole load of Metal Gear Rays. Raiden obviously collapses because there's just far too many. There's hundreds of them, right? And so he can't continue. Then Solid Snake attempts to kill Raiden using one of the Metal Gear Rays, but Olga Golukovich jumps in and saves the day, since you can't allow Raiden to die, can she? Because if Raiden dies, the child dies. Her child dies. So Solidus grabs her with those two tentacles that he has, and basically takes out this P90, does a swirling thing that usually Revolver Ocelot does with his guns, with his revolver. So he does this swirly thing and shoots Olga Golukovich right in the head. Dead, right? So we then see like Emma's worm is still making progress, and it seems like has made enough progress to turn the Metal Gear Rays to attack Solidus. Solidus basically destroys the remaining Metal Gear Rays that we see and is pissed off. He basically learns that Raiden was basically sent by the Patriots, because essentially the Patriots have GW. That's GW's a system made by the Patriots, right? And the AI, Colonel Campbell and Rose, came from those from the GW, which Raiden's been listening to the entire time. So effectively, Raiden's been controlled by the Patriots in doing all these actions for them, essentially, right? So he's really pissed, and because it's ruining his plan. So Raiden passes out, Olga being dead. He took a hard hit with that. And then he wakes up, and then him and Solid Snake are in handcuffs. They're currently on top of Arsenal Gear, surrounded by Revolver Ocelot and Fortune. Fortune had captured Solid Snake. So the list of the names of the Patriots is actually inside of GW, and Solid Snake is trying to figure out the names on the list, essentially, right? But Revolver Ocelot steps in and says that all of you are idiots, and that this entire thing was set up by the Patriots. This entire thing was set up by the Patriots. Everything was organized to be like the events of Shadow Moses. Revolver making all these comparisons, like the Big Shell is basically the Shadow Moses Island. The worm, the virus, mimics Foxdie. Liquid Snake and Solid Snake are the sons of Big Boss, right? And Raiden is effectively like a son to Solid Snake. So Revolver Ocelot then proceeds to tell Fortune that she's not actually special, and her evading those bullets were not luck, but an act of the Patriots to make her believe she was invincible. In fact, it was an actual electromagnetic technology or some sort of device that was designed by the Patriots that Fortune had on her, which is why the bullets could never get her, right? So Ocelot goes to prove this by taking out a revolver and once again shooting Fortune in the chest. She's not currently dead at that time. He also states that he's been working with the Patriots the entire time. So Revolver Ocelot jumps into this last remaining Metal Gear and shoots missiles at Raiden, Solid Snake, and Fortune. However, Fortune miraculously deflects the missiles without having the need of that electromagnetic device, right? So everyone's shocked now. It's like, how can she do this if she didn't have the ability in the first place? But apparently she does. So what happens next is Revolver Ocelot's arm starts acting up again because Solid Snake is in the same vicinity, right? Because whenever Solid Snake gets close, the arm starts acting up. So now Revolver Ocelot's now turned into Liquid Snake. So now Liquid Snake wants to destroy the Patriots, and because Liquid Snake is in Revolver Ocelot's head, brain, body, everywhere. He now knows where the Patriots are and who they are, right? Because Ocelot knows who they are. So what happens is Liquid Snake jumps off into the Metal Gear Ray and jumps into the ocean off of Arsenal Gear, and Solid Snake dives in to follow him. Now, Arsenal Gear crashes into the shore of Manhattan. Solid Snake and Raiden wake up on a broken roof. Solid Snake wanted to destroy the Patriots for freedom, right? But Raiden gets a call from Colonel Campbell and Rose, which is obviously we know now is fake, right? It's all AI, designed by the Patriots. And they reveal, obviously, their AI working for the Patriots. They mentioned the S3 plan did not actually stand for Solid Snake Simulation, but the Selection for Societal Sanity, a program run by the Patriots in order to manipulate world events and the decisions of individuals, right? As well as essentially mold these individuals to whoever they want them to be. The S3 plan was to test Raiden in the Big Shell and see what the results were, right? So Solid Snake wants to kill Raiden because the nanomachines out of his body. He wants to get those nanomachines out of Raiden's body because it's in connection with the Patriots, right? Because through Colonel Campbell and Rose, they were able to speak to him, right? So Solid Snake wants to remove those nanomachines. So they battle. Raiden understands that he has to obviously survive this because if he dies, the child dies, of course. So Raiden eventually beats Solid Snake with his blades, and Solid Snake falls off the building. Right now, Raiden's in the streets of Manhattan, and all these people in suits come out like it's a normal working day, right? And Solid Snake randomly appears and comes up to Raiden asking if he's okay. Solid Snake says he and Otacon are going to track down the Patriots. Raiden, of course, wants to join in, but Solid Snake says no. Look, Rose is actually pregnant, and she does in fact exist. So now we just see her down the road, for which then Raiden goes up to her and basically tells her they will make their own future and they will decide they're not going to let anyone else do that for them, i.e. Patriots telling them how to live their lives, right? So after that, Otacon decrypts GW and finds a list of the Patriots. However, each member has been dead for the last 100 years. Very confusing, right? So the theory is that the Patriots knew that they would get their hands on the list of the name of the Patriots from GW. So what they've done is, instead of having their actual names, they've inserted a bunch of random names so that when they did get the list, from GW, no one knows who they are and where they are. And that's basically the story of this entire game. In case I've missed something, please do comment below. But I hope this has provided some sort of clarity and insight on what the game is really about. Please do subscribe and leave a like below. And thanks for watching.